Should you train with a power meter? It has been a topic that is long debated in the cycling world, and also there's a lot of advice out there that say whether or not you should or should not train with a power meter. Now specifically in today's video, I'll be sharing some of my thoughts and opinions, and to hopefully change the perspective on how you see a power meter and why you should train with power. So make sure to stay till the end of the video to find out everything that you need to know about training with a power meter. So to answer the question of should you train with a power meter, and I think for majority of the cases the answer is yes, and here's why. When a person decides to pick up cycling, there are a few phases that they are most likely to go through. There's the early phases where they're still deciding whether or not this sport is right for them, and if they do, they'll most likely pick up the sport, and then they'll move on to stage 2, stage 3, where they fall in love with the sport, they start to take their training seriously, buy better equipment, and then participate in events and races. And so now I'm going to explain how a power meter can help a cyclist in their early phases of cycling. Now I'm sure you heard many advice out there that says that if you're new to cycling, if you're not serious about training, if you're just the type who just everyday coffee ride, picture ride, don't train with a power meter. And I'm here to change that perspective. And here's why. You see, because cycling is a slightly different sport compared to other sports like running or swimming. And the main difference between cycling and other sports like running, for example, is that in running, every step that you take forward, every meter that you run essentially, is a direct effort from your body. There's no equipment that help accomplish that meter. Whereas in cycling, equipment comes into play. And that is a problem because of equipment, essentially not every meter that you cycle is a direct effort from your body. It could be because you are drafting behind someone, you are going down hills, and that's why using distance to measure your training for cycling is not necessarily the most accurate way of measuring your training, because unlike running, every meter that you step forward, you move forward, is a direct effort from your body. And so how a power meter can help in the early stages of cycling is that it helps keep you accountable, because a lot of newcomers to the sport don't exactly know how to measure their effort level when they're cycling. And so a power meter helps solve that problem. Essentially what you see on your Garmin, the numbers that you see, it's a direct feedback of the effort level from your body. So essentially it becomes the same thing as running. Every pedal stroke that you push forward, the numbers that you see on Garmin is the direct feedback effort level from your body. And it becomes the equivalent of walking one step or running one step when you're running. And also another common thing that we experience in cycling is upgrades to our equipment. The ceramic BB here, ceramic pulley there, the carbon wheels, aero frame, and all that will eventually lead to you cycling at the same speed for less effort. And so what that leads to is that just because some people think that they're cycling at the same speed on a new bike compared to their old bike, they're still putting out the same effort level, although this time they're on a much more expensive and much more faster bike. And so because of that, cycling has essentially become less and less of an exercise when you come to think about it. So a power meter helps solve that problem. The numbers that you see on your Garmin, you see on your computer, it's a direct feedback of your effort level coming from your body. And so now we're going to move on into the next phase of cycling. And riders who move into this phase are most likely riders who are looking for a little bit more, something a little different. Maybe they've done a lot of coffee rides, santai rides, picture rides, photography rides, those sort of rides, and they are looking to take their training to the next level. Maybe they want to improve their power, their climbing, or maybe they're training specifically for an event. Here's how a power meter can help if you're in this stage of your cycling journey. Now there's one very important tool that I utilize when it comes to training with power, and that is my rider profile. Now I'm going to insert a chart here, and you can see that on that chart, in the first column you have your 5-second power, second column you have your 1-minute power, third column 5 minutes, and your fourth column 20 minutes power. So to find out where you stand in all of these numbers, essentially what you need to do is that you need to do each of these measurements separately. So you need to sprint hard for 5 seconds, you need to go all out for 1 minute, and then all out for 5 minutes, and lastly all out for 20 minutes. And so essentially what you do is, with all those 4 power readings, you take that power reading and divide it by your weight. So essentially you get your watts per kilo, and then you can find where you stand in those 4 columns. Now what you need to do right now is draw a line to connect each of those 4 measurements together, and based on that line, you can tell what type of rider you are, essentially your rider profile. So if your line spikes at the 5-second column, you know that your strength is sprinting and you are the type of rider who can sprint really well compared to all your other power measurements. But if you see a line spike in the 20-minute column, then you know that you're probably the type of rider who can climb pretty well if you're very light, and also you can hold sustained efforts pretty well as well. And so based on those 4 power readings, you can find out your strengths and weaknesses. And personally for me, I found that my 5-second is the highest among all 4 of them, and my 20-minute is the lowest. And so basically my strength is sprinting and my weakness is climbing. And I can tailor my training specifically around that to improve my strengths and make sure my weaknesses are not so weak to the point where it is holding me back. And so when it comes to choosing events, you can choose events or races that specifically suit your strength, or if not, you know where to train, you know where your weaknesses are in order for you to not get dropped in a specific event or race. And so those are just a few example scenarios on how a power meter can help you out in those different stages of your cycling journey. And I guess the message I'm trying to say here, and the perspective that I'm trying to change here, is that no matter what stage you are or what phase you are going through in your cycling journey, a power meter can always help you out no matter where you are. But of course up to a certain degree or a certain extent, because in your early stages of cycling, like we mentioned just now, a power meter at that point is most likely just a tool to keep you accountable, to make sure that you know how to judge your effort level coming directly from your body. But as you start to move through the phases of cycling, you start to become more serious, you take your training more seriously. A power meter at that point becomes more than just a tool to help keep you accountable. It gives you numbers to analyze, and it also gives you the opportunity to tailor training plans specifically to your strength and your weaknesses. And so that is why I think that one of the most essential upgrades that a cyclist must make is to get a power meter on their bike. Not just only the carbon wheels, the ceramic BBs, ceramic pulley, those kind of things, but a power meter as well, because these are the tools that can actually improve your cycling performance. And so I hope this video will be able to shed some light on should you train with a power meter. And what we're going to talk about next in the next video is how to train with a power meter. So make sure to subscribe to this channel to make sure you do not miss out on the upcoming video.